If we abolished income tax, would that just benefit the wealthy? I saw this question asked online real recently, and the debate in the comment section was absolutely wild. So I figured I'd talk a bit around the topic, because I've been investing for over 10 years. I've created a lot of wealth. I understand money extremely well. And I think that a large part of society is kind of working against their own interest in this matter. So income tax, what most people mean when they talk about it is the wage that they get for the labor that they're doing for someone else. The money that you get from a job, your employment. So, people say that abolishing tax on work, this is just gonna benefit the wealthy. And the argument is that a person making $200,000 every year is gonna get to keep more than the person making $30,000 every year, and this is unfair. And if you look at it like that, it makes perfect sense. It looks very, very unreasonable. Yes, indeed. However, we're kind of fighting over crumbs in this case, because the real wealthy, they don't work. We have something else. It's called capital gains. When the money is working for you. I saw an interesting graphic online about if you had made like $1,000 every second since the Stone Age, you still wouldn't have as much as Elon Musk in that case. Some calculation like that. And that's because the nature of capital gains is exponential. It's huge. It's massive compared to labor. I've been compounding my money for over 10 years, and so far this year, just in my private banking account, that has netted me $250,000 in unrealized gains. In terms of wages, I'm just making low six figures. Can't even hope to make close to that. Imagine if you have inherited wealth, or if you've been compounding wealth for 5,000 years. The kind of numbers we're talking then. So that's where a big chunk of the economy is. And I think perhaps the media is getting people to fight over these crumbs. Look at this guy, he's saving 160k versus this guy is saving only 10k from such a proposal. But if you look at real wages, they've been pretty much stagnant since the 80s. Yet, GDP has been growing. And have you ever asked yourself, where is all of that money going? If you read a finance textbook, it's gonna say that 1/3 of all the GDP, all the wealth, is gonna go to capital owners, and 2/3 is gonna go to laborers. I think that's a bit of an outdated numbers, because the finance textbooks are old. If we look at GDP per capita and average wage per capita, it tells a different story. We're a lot more productive per worker in the economy, yet the share of the pie has not really increased. But if you own assets, times have never been greater. So why don't the internet, people on the news perhaps talk about income tax as well, but why don't they talk about capital gains tax? because that's a lot bigger chunk of the economy than this income tax is for the really wealthy. If that's the goal, to tax them, you can debate about that, you know, back and forth as well. But why this laser focus on crumbs? One guy is gonna gain 100,000 more a year from no income tax versus another guy, you know, when you have capital gains tax, and that's so low. And I don't really think people understand, you know, the massive difference, because if you don't do the math and if you don't look at more high-end luxury items, it's never gonna hit you in your day-to-day. But if you go down to, let's say, Marbella in Spain, and you look in the harbor, you can see some very large boats, some yachts. People argue that the smallest yacht costs roughly $10 million. And for most people, they're never gonna earn that in their entire lives, even if they don't have any income tax. The only way to get there is by owning assets. It's from capital gains. But I think I know why that's not a big debate in society, and why that's not a large focus for the group of people who talk about these matters, who focus on that rather than creating wealth for themselves. Once again, it comes down to asset ownership. Who owns the media? Who owns the one that's doing the reporting? Well, then you have the answer to why we have the narrative that we have. Don't believe me? Let me give you one example. Look at the Wall Street Journal or Washington Times or something like this. The newspaper that Jeff Bezos bought. I don't keep track on the news at all. I don't read any of these. But the point here is that before Jeff Bezos bought this magazine, they wrote about unionizing and the need for labor to organize and demand a fair wage, this and that. But after this newspaper was bought, not a single opinion piece or article about unionization, certainly not in a positive light. Coincidence? Perhaps. Perhaps not. What do you think? And this ties back to why we have the focus on the crumbs and not the large pie. Why we have the focus on income tax and not capital gains tax in society at large. Because if you really look at your own interest as a worker, you know, a wagee, you're gonna see that you're gonna be the one who benefit the most from no income tax. Because really rich people don't work. We live off of assets. That's some food for thought. Alright, that's been it for this video. Commenting on income tax, if it would only benefit the rich. And as always, hope you guys make a ton of money, whatever investments you decide to make. Take care now. Bye bye.